Hey guys, welcome to Pixel Street Videos, where today we're going to have another discussion video. Today is the 25th anniversary of the release of the Nintendo 64 in the US. In Japan, this released in like June or July of 1996, but in the US, it was September 29th, 1996. And this, unfortunately, unlike my GameCube discussion talking about the 20 years of that console, this is not my original Nintendo 64. My mom gave it away to my aunt, and I lost all of my games, all of my stuff. So that was disappointing. But you know, we're going to focus on the good stuff here. Because yes, the Nintendo 64 is my first ever video game console. This came out when I was 4 years old. I played it, and man, do I have some memories. It's not my favorite console of all time, but man, it is the one that I go back to all the time the most for nostalgia purposes. This console, this was the first trip for Nintendo into full 3D environments. There was a lot of discussion around the time of Nintendo not going with disc-based games yet. PlayStation was, and so was Sega. I believe the Saturn would have been out around that time. And Nintendo was really seen as being stuck in the past. And honestly, yeah, they were. Making games for cartridges was just more expensive. There wasn't enough room on them. Discs just had a lot more space on them for games than cartridges did. So the Nintendo 64 really saw a drop in third-party content, which is kind of a trend you see a lot for Nintendo going forward, except for the Wii and the Switch. It's I absolutely love this console. I don't care how funky some of the gimmicks are, how outdated the games are. I will always love this console, and it's a really big reason. I mean, if you've seen my reaction to Nintendo announcing N64 games on the Switch, maybe you'll understand why now. So let's take a look at the controller, because this is one of the most funky things around here. This is the very first video game controller I played with, so at the time I didn't care. Looking at this now, what the hell is this? This is awful. Now, while you can't... Okay, the biggest problem here is that you can't ever have a configuration where your hand can cover all buttons on it, which is just awful design. But there are some good parts to this. For one, the joystick still is pretty damn good. I mean, it for controllers that have their that have been worn down and everything, this can get a little loose. But you know what? I have never had a Nintendo 64 controller that had drift on it. How many Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons have you gone through? I'm just going to come out and say it. This joystick right here is better than the Joy-Cons joystick. So, you got that going for you. Additionally, you got the Z button on the back. I always enjoyed having that click. That always felt really good to me. A and B. The C buttons were your first camera control buttons. The first dedicated camera controls. This is a really hard controller to go back to and play on, but man, it still holds a place in my heart, just like everything else with the Nintendo 64. Let's take a look at some games. Now, like I said, these are not my original games, unfortunately, but I have, over the years, gotten a box copy of Super Mario 64.
It's me, Mario!
My first video game ever. It's not sealed or anything because I don't have that much money, but I'm pretty happy with this. This is one of my more appreciative collector's items that I have. I have another copy, but since it's used, there's like marker on it and everything for whoever last owned it. But yeah. This was my first ever video game, and what a way to start out my video game career. I just have so many memories. I remember as a kid, there was a promo image of Bowser shooting fire at Mario, and he was doing the thing where he like holds his butt because it's on fire. And I remember Bowser at the time scared me. He scared the crap out of me. That by today's standards, not great looking render, just terrified me. I remember walking into the castle and hearing his laugh when you first come in. That scared me as well. But once I got on to Bob-omb Battlefield and got to run around and jump around, jump on Goombas, grab Bob-ombs, collect stars, man, I love this game so much. It's oh man, this game's still special to me. A lot of people, I hear the criticisms that it hasn't aged as well because nothing from the 90s and the 3D era has aged well. The camera is a little rough. I wish they would have updated it more on the Super Mario 3D All-Stars release, but hey, this game is great. I'm always gonna defend it. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. And man, I just gotta say, I really want to collect more Nintendo 64 boxes. Because man, I love this. Going on to the second game that I think of when I think of the Nintendo 64, we got Mario Kart 64.
Welcome to Mario Kart!
Now, like with Mario 64, this one hasn't aged as well. I think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best Mario Kart. Then you have Double Dash, Mario Kart 7. Like, by no means is this the best Mario Kart in the series. But at the time, this was a pretty damn impressive game. So instead of 3D racers in a 3D environment, you had 2D pixel art in a 3D environment that, as the camera moved, it would give your character a different look. So if the camera was a little to the left of them, it would show them like leaning to the left. It was a really cool idea that I think they pulled off great. The battle mode in this game, though, that is where this game shines. You have Skyscraper, Block Fort. There was one weird one with like 3 different stories to it that I really liked. And there was a ring one. I think it was called like Donut Ring. Something Donut, I think. Regardless, though, Super Mario 64 is pretty damn good. Very excited to play that again on Switch Online. Let's get to the first non-Nintendo made game, Diddy Kong 64, or Diddy Kong Racing. Not Diddy Kong 64. This game was up there with some of when did Diddy Kong Racing I don't care. This game's great. It has a really cool adventure mode, something that Mario Kart 64 doesn't have, where you can just drive around and collect balloons, and there's this open world. You can change cars between, or you can change vehicle between a car, a hovercraft, and an airplane. This game is actually where Banjo-Kazooie and Conker debuted. This was still when Conker was really kid-friendly. And we didn't know Kazooie was a thing. It was just Banjo, but he was wearing a backpack. Diddy Kong Racing's really great. I hope someday we get to see another remake of it. There was a remake of it on the DS. That was fine. I played it and I was like, whatever. Moving on, a series that I really enjoyed came out. That was the Mario Party series. I have the first 3, but Mario Party 2 was my favorite. It's actually probably still my favorite of all the Mario Parties. Granted, I didn't play many of the GameCube ones. I might have played 4 and 5, but not a ton. I never actually owned them. But Mario Party 2 is great. Every map you go to, all the characters have different costumes. It's like a theme. There's a cowboy, a horror, there's a Spaceland one, there's a pirate one. It's really great. I always really enjoyed the mini games in here. I mean, this is classic Mario Party. This is where it really took off. The first one is still really good, but this one was better in almost every single way. It also didn't destroy the palms of your hands. So, yes. If you haven't given Mario Party 2 a try, definitely give it a try. I hope it comes to Nintendo Switch Online, but with Mario Party Superstars coming out soon and having 2 maps from this game on it, I'm a little bit iffy about that, but hey, they're remade maps, so I'm happy with that. One of the most high-profile starts to a series on the Nintendo 64 was Super Smash Bros. Oh baby. Now this was such a great party game. This was really my introduction to fighting games. I'm sure there's some really hardcore fighting game aficionados out there that would scoff at that idea. But man, Super Smash Bros. Was great. Again, I'm going to say it a lot. This game hasn't aged well. It is really hard to go back and play today. There's so many aspects of Smash Bros. That isn't there now. But hey, you started out with 8 fighters. You can unlock 4 extra: Luigi, Captain Falcon, Ness, and Jigglypuff. And oh, there wasn't many stages at the time. The moves were really basic, but man, 5-year-old, 6-year-old Johnny really enjoyed this game. I still look back on it fondly. This is a game that I really want to get the box for, like my Mario Kart 64 and Mario 64. Now to one of the greatest video games ever made, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Oh my god. Now, honestly, I never really got into Zelda in the N64 days. It was over my head. I did play it a little bit at a friend's place, I think. I don't know. Where did I play it? Whatever. I did give it a try, but it was just over my head. I was too young. Zelda just didn't resonate with me yet. It wasn't until the GameCube with the promotional collector's edition that I actually got into Ocarina of Time and played through and beat it. And this is one of my favorite video games of all time. I love it. It's an adventure. At the time, it really felt like Breath of the Wild felt in 2017. To me, at least. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't feel like that now. It's aged. If you haven't played the game and you want to give it a try, please get a Nintendo 3DS and give the remake a try. It's going to be on Switch Online, but I'm more than pretty sure that it's going to be this version on Switch Online, which it's still good, but there are issues with it. Please give the remake a try because that game is special. And then its direct follow-up, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I don't know if my camera can pick it up, but I've got the I don't know what that's called. It's not holographic, but the image kind of shifts when you move it. Regardless, this game also gave a try. Couldn't get into it until the GameCube era. This game was really tough for me. The whole 3-day time mechanic really messed with me as a kid, and I didn't really fall in love with this until much later. But again, if you ever want to give this a try, the 3DS has an excellent remake. Please give those a try. They are so good. Yet again, another start to a very popular series that has kind of dwindled in recent years. Paper Mario, baby. I love this game. I haven't played A Thousand Year Door. I always hear how people say how that game is so much better than this one. This game right here, this has to be second best in the series. Origami King, Color Splash, Sticker Star are just all not great to me. Yeah, part of it's the RPG thing, but they're just not that fun to me. Especially well, of course, Sticker Star is the worst, but I could not get into Origami King. But we're sticking on Nintendo 64. This game, you're Mario, you fight Bowser. He's got the Star Rod from Kirby, and he becomes invincible, blasts you away. Then you have to travel around the Mushroom Kingdom, getting allies and fighting your way back up to get Bowser. This game is great. I love it so much. And I would think that this is one that hasn't aged as poorly as some other ones. This is a really great game. I definitely recommend giving it a try when it comes to Nintendo Switch Online, because I'm sure this one will be one that plays really great on that. For all of the highs that the Nintendo 64 had, there were some lows, and I don't think there is any way there's a lower low than Superman 64. Back when I worked at Disc Replay, I saw this copy come in, and I was like, I have to buy that, because I remember playing it as a kid, and at that time, I hadn't really registered what was a good game and a bad video game yet, but I remember this being the first video game I played that I didn't like. This was a bad video game. It is a disaster. There are so many issues to it. If you want to look up that, there are hundreds and hundreds of video games of videos on YouTube you can look up. I'm not going to go into it here. This game is a disaster, but I bought this copy just because, you know what? It's a disaster. I'm going to have it. Unfortunately, I have some other video games, but the ones I want to talk about most, I don't have copies of. First up is Banjo-Kazooie. One of my favorite collectible 3D platformers around. I still go back to Super Mario 64 as feeling better than it. I believe the outside content of collecting things is much better in Banjo-Kazooie, but the movement of Mario is just better overall than Banjo. Regardless, though, Banjo-Kazooie is one of my most beloved games ever. Banjo-Tooie was a bit of a step backwards for me. There was a ton more to it, and that just kind of made it worse. I still hold out hope that Microsoft are going to bring it back at some point. But hey, it's the Nintendo 64 version will be on Switch at some point, so that's very exciting to see. Outside of that, GoldenEye 007 is a great... That was one of the most iconic first-person shooters. It was really after Doom and Wolfenstein, it was the first console first-person shooter that I think really resonated with people. Terrible to go back to now. Like, I've tried it, and it's just awful to play nowadays. But if we ever got a remake of that, it's never going to happen, because that game, there's so many license issues with the James Bond name. And also, I'm sure Rare holds some kind of stake in it, and probably Nintendo. It would be a disaster to get a remake of that. But it was a lot of fun. I never got into it big at the time. I was a little too young, I think, but I can really appreciate what it did for first-person shooters in general, like Halo. Who knows where we would be without GoldenEye? Maybe we'd be in the same place, but I don't think so. Conker's Bad Fur Day, probably the last big Rare release. It was a mature title that was funny. Not the greatest platformer. Even going back to it now, it's like, it's not that great to actually play. If you're going into that, you're going into it for the vulgarness and the comedy in it. But it's a good time regardless. I'm trying to think if there's any other games I want to point to off the top of my head. Doom 64, I really enjoy Doom 64. That's not a game... I didn't get to play that game until probably a few years ago for the first time, but man, that's a really good feeling game. Yeah, the Nintendo 64 is great, guys. I hear all the criticisms. It's got a weird controller. The games haven't aged well. But man, this was like the first console to really take a stab at 4-player multiplayer, and it knocked it out of the park. Almost every game you got had a 4-player party system in it. Even Pokemon Stadium, which is another great game that I actually have in the other room. That game was focused on the traditional battles, but there was like a mini game mode that you could have 4 people playing at the same time, and it was so much fun. Oh, The Nintendo 64 is special. I don't care what anyone says. I love it so much. Star Fox 64. F-Zero. I never played the F-Zero on this one. F-Zero XP, GP. It's coming on Switch Online, and I'm going to give it a try for the first time there. Very excited for that. Yeah, if there's any video games that I have missed that you want to talk about, please mention them in the comments. Let me know your memories about the Nintendo 64. I love this console so much. It's just got a special place in my heart. Like the video if you like it, and subscribe to see any of our future videos. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye!